Okay, so it's not like I don't use palette knives, but I don't really use palette knives. That is about to change. Hey everyone, this is CJ of CJ's Creative Studio, and I'm about to start a new painting. And I'm going to do something that I haven't done in quite a while. Use a palette knife. And when I say quite a while, I mean the last time I can remember doing a palette knife painting is probably measured more in decades than in years. So I'm not expecting great things. So, if that's the case, why am I doing it? Well, a while back on my birthday, after being prompted about my complaining about how open acrylics aren't really suitable for painting with a palette knife because of their softness and also because they can take a while to dry, he decided to take things in his own hands. So he got me a color mixing set of heavy body acrylics. Let me open up the box. Here you go. As you can see, I haven't opened it yet. And he got me a different set of heavy body acrylics. Once again, I haven't opened it yet. And on top of that, he picked up a bag of palette knives for me from, I'm guessing, one of the craft and hobby stores in the area. These aren't fantastic palette knives, but they were a present, which means I have to use them. And so we start on a little journey, my friends. I'm going to use one of, wow, I shouldn't have two of these things on my lap. One of these two sets, I'm going to use one of, he also got me a packet of gesso board. So I'm going to use one of the gesso boards he got me. This is of a goalkeeper in honor of the start of the Men's World Cup, which starts today. And we're going to see how big of a mess I can make. So let's get to it. And we're into early voiceover because I forgot to turn on my mic. So here are the lids of the two sets that my brother gave me. They're both from Golden. One is Color Mixing Classic Theory and the other is Color Mixing Modern Theory. The primary difference is that the Classic Theory is a little more RGB oriented, sort of a pigment mindset, while the Modern Theory is more CMY oriented, kind of a transparent mindset. I decided to go with Modern Theory simply because the paints in this set are less likely to be in my everyday rotation. So I thought it would be a little bit more of a challenge, and thus a little bit more fun. So here we are at the paint unboxing. My, they look all like fresh little soldiers ready to go into battle. So I guess there's nothing left to do but take out a knife and set them free. Being careful, of course, not to cut the tubes as I'm doing this. So the paints that we have available to us are Hansa Yellow Light, Hansa Yellow Medium, and I'm going to tend to prefer the medium, I can tell you right away. Naphthol Red Light, not one of my favorite paints, honestly. Quinacridone Magenta, which is a nice primary. Anthraquinone Blue, which I have to admit I've never used. Phthalo Blue Green Shade, which is an old standby of mine. Phthalo Green Blue Shade, which is one of the colors I'll use if I need to make greens, and the ever-present titanium white. Painting just isn't painting without titanium white. And I happen to have a lot of titanium white, so I'm going to actually use a tube I already have on hand. And the same with the phthalo green and the phthalo blue. No sense opening a new tube when I already have paint already opened. So I'm just going to grab these tubes and set them aside for later. Next up are the knives I'll be using. These are from the assortment my brother gave me. I'll be using a small diamond, a trowel, and a square edge knife. And I thought I might need these knives that I'm more accustomed to, but turns out I really didn't. So I'll just stick with these three for the entire painting. Of course, my glass palette, which is my usual palette. And for my climate, my ever-present airbrush with a jar filled with distilled water to keep everything moist. So with that out of the way, it's time to start painting. On the palette I have titanium white, anthracite blue, hence a yellow medium, and naphthol red light. And the underpainting I'm doing with the brush simply because I'm making it up as I go. And I'm just trying to get the outline of the figure that is actually on my reference image, which I got from Pixabay, because honor of the Men's World Cup, I wanted to do something with a goalkeeper, and this is pretty much all they had. I would have loved to have done Hope Solo, but the canvas is too small, and I don't have the rights to any images with Hope Solo in them. C'est la vie. So right now I am putting all the paints on the palette so I can say I used them all. I really don't need them at this point, but I'm still just kind of putting in my colors, which as you can see are rather dark. I learned long ago that if you're doing a palette knife painting, in many cases it's better to go from dark to light than the other way around, so I'm kind of holding to that. So now I'm beginning to add the texture and the colors that I'm going to need for all the rest of the painting. First things first though, I need to make up a mound of black. Very useful color, not only because of the blackness of it, but because, as right now, it makes grays, so I can put in net lines and things like that. The black wasn't the easiest color to mix because I'm used to using ultramarine blue and burnt umber. And here, while the anthracite blue is close enough to ultramarine that it wasn't a problem, the naphthol red light was a little too light, and so I was thankful for the magenta. It helped compensate a bit. So now we're going to start blocking in the figure, and I kind of discovered kind of early on that these knives were really too big for what I wanted to do. I could have cut something from some of those dummy credit card things you get in the mail sometimes, but I really did want to stick to just using the tools I got in my birthday presents, and so that's pretty much what I did. One of the philosophies I tried to stick with, since this is more impressionistic than I usually do, was to have the warm colors indicating highlights and the cool colors indicating shadows. I pretty much stuck to that throughout. I wasn't too concerned about which colors exactly, just that they were either warm or cool. And does point out something that I was very happy with, is that the impressionistic nature of this, because I've been wanting to do that for a while, and I just keep doing realism. I can't help myself. So the mauve that I created was for a couple of reasons. One was to have kind of a background sandy sort of color. I mean, it's mostly going to get covered up. That's fine. But I wanted something redder than a sand color so that it would help neutralize the green a little bit. Additionally, by putting it in the crowd, it gave me a sort of non-committal color that allowed this to be more generically placed. And right now, again, I'm having trouble with some of the details because my knives are too big and my board is too small. 6 by 8 I knew was going to be a problem. I really wouldn't have wanted to do this on anything smaller than an 8 by 10, but again, birthday present. So here I'm just putting in highlights and shadows and starting to put in a lot of details. The face I didn't want to make too specific to the reference, but I wanted so that when you're standing at a viewable distance from the painting, it still looked recognizably like a face. It isn't quite there yet, but it will be. For some reason, I found this glove to be fun. I don't know why. It was very fiddly, a lot of small little details, but I enjoyed it. And again, speaking to using warm on top and light on the bottom, after I get the net put in, the ball gets a nice coating of yellow on top, showing that the sun is shining on it. And more blues and greens on the bottom to show that the sun isn't. There's the yellow. And now I'm just finishing up small little things, and yeah, the painting is pretty much done at this point. I covered up that blotch of yellow, which was really drawing my eye. A few shadows, a little bit of schmutzing on the face. And this is all artistic license. None of this is on any reference. And there we go. The painting's done, and we get to go on and paint another day. Overall, I'm fairly happy with how this turned out, especially considering how long it's been since I've done a painting like this. The small size was a bit of an issue, but I think we overcame it well enough. Clearly, this is going to spur me on to doing more palette knife painting, which I've wanted to do, and I've wanted to do more impressionistic works as well. So that's a topic for further exploration. So that'll be it for this time. I hope you found it enjoyable and/or informational. Please click subscribe if you haven't already, and click the like button. And I'll see you next time. Until then, as always, be creative and keep on practicing.